Hey there everyone, this is Evil Monkey here to bring you the dev livestream recap for the June dev livestream. Lots of cool things announced here. We got the info of what's happening in June and July, along with the first anniversary event, and then, of course, Season 3 information. So let's just jump right into it. Since the June update's right around the corner, and that's the first one chronologically that comes up, I figured we'd start with this one. This one isn't a very large update as most people expected. It does have a couple of big things, including one surprise I just wasn't expecting, and we'll actually start off with that one, because I think it's the coolest update that's happening. Something that's always asked about since the game's come out is newer difficulties. Will we ever get another one? And they actually announced we'll be getting a new difficulty for Void Abyss intercept battles. This one will be called Challenge Mode. It seems like it'll kind of work like the VEP stage challenge mode, the Void Erosion Purge. And the fact that you'll get a one-time reward for completing it, and it'll mainly be, after that, just leaderboard challenges if you want to climb up the leaderboard. The cool thing about this one, though, is apparently the boss will be the same boss, but different. They said what they'll do is the boss will have new skills and some maybe new mechanics. They'll have new patterns, but it will still be, in this case, Ice Maiden. So we'll have the normal ones that you guys have all been fighting, which is the current Ice Maiden fight for Void Abyss, and then we'll have Challenge Mode, which will change a lot of things. Now, they did go into a little bit of discussion about how they currently feel where Abyss battles are, and they kind of gave a lukewarm response to it, saying it's better than what it was, where Tormentor was one-shottable. You just walked in, one-shot him. Now, Ice Maiden at least takes 3 seconds if you do Serena. It's still funny, but they said this is more in line with what they kind of wanted, since the way that most people are actually defeating Ice Maiden quickly is using the mechanic that they added themselves, which you guys don't know. That's if you destroy one of the parts on Ice Maiden, you get a huge boost to your skill power, which helps you fight her a lot. It's actually pretty necessary for the fight. They did also say this is not the end goal for Abyssal fights. They do want to continue improving them. So they just said this is a step in the right direction from Tormentor to Ice Maiden, and this is a good step in that direction, but they want to continue to improve it, and they aren't fully satisfied with where it's at. But the challenge mode is something I'm really interested in, because this is something I've always wanted devs to do, is that if you get a higher difficulty of boss fight, to change its mechanics. I'm very interested in this, and we'll see how it goes. So the other big thing in June that will be updated will be the external component cores. Something we've all been looking for a long time, but they were delayed for balance reasons. They went a little bit in depth into this. So there will be 2 core slot types, which is recovery and defense. And every single component will have 2 slots. Now, whether their recovery or defense is consistent across every set or each component type. So this is so that you won't have to change your components based off of your build. For example, if you're running one component set type, like Slayer, you won't have to swap to something like Volcanic to fit your build. In fact, you'll just be able to keep your current component set, because it will just always be the same slot types across every single component set. They said the main idea behind these cores was for ability users to be able to have defense stats, since gun users are able to throw defense modules in their build, but most ability users can't because they're just taken up by crit, mana use, ability damage, so on and so forth. They said this is kind of balance out the playing field, so ability characters felt better to use. And then the only other thing they really went over was the fact that you'll be able to acquire these through Sigma Sector and 400%. They didn't really give much about how much you'll get. Small quality of life change that they did was presets will now be able to be reorganized however you want them. So you won't have to delete it and then move it around manually. You'll just be able to click a button, as you can see on the screen, and just move it around. Nice quality of life. An unexpected change was the change of death counters. If you guys know what I'm talking about, it's when you go into a game your team has a certain amount of deaths before you get a game over. But now instead of a team counter, it's actually a solo counter, meaning each individual player has their own death counter. And when they reach 0, they're just stuck in a permanent down state until the fight's over. And if your team does win, you do still get the rewards. They said this was to kind of help with frustration if you had that one person just join the match and died 5 times in a row, and you couldn't do anything about it. I guess technically be 3 times in a row, but you get my point. They said this was to deal with frustration. It brings up a lot of questions of balance, like how's this going to feel balance-wise. Definitely for convenience, it feels a lot better that I won't have to worry about that one person just joining my lobby. We've all had that one person in our lobby before who just 5 seconds into the fight, and he's wasted every death. I've had it happen, you've had it happen. This is a good change. I just don't know how balance-wise it'll feel. Of course, June has its own cosmetics as well. One of the changes that has been really requested by the community was to be able to toggle on and off some of the Descendant-specific cosmetics, such as Serena's wings. And this will now be an option. You'll be able to have a little check mark there, as you can see, and you just click that. And you can toggle the wings on and off per preset that you have. The other thing was also something people asked a lot about. You will be able to toggle Sharon and Jaber's cybernetic chin on and off, so that it will just show a normal chin versus the metallic one that they normally have. Much appreciated change, so that you can kind of have it look how you want to for your cosmetic build. And then we'll also be getting, as some people have heard, a new skin. I'm sure you guys have seen the tweet. This one, I kid you not, is called Furry Companion Skin. Yeah, I'll throw up the image there. I do like the skin for the fellow, but for the Descendant, you know, I like the panda one better. They're adding improvements to the photo mode. I have never actually used the photo mode, but these changes look pretty good. I especially like this change here where you can see this kind of comic look. You guys don't know what these are stickers and frames you can add to photos. You'll apparently be able to get these through events, and I'm assuming the cosmetic shop, and damn, they look good. Like I said, the comic one especially looks good. Since Season 3 is now going to be in August, and the Battle Pass was going to end next week, keyword was, it's now getting extended until Season 3 starts, so that'll be the answer to that. They also will extend out other things beyond the Battle Pass that also are about to end till Season 3. I'm not sure what all this covers, but it sounds like pretty much everything that was going to end next week is just going to get extended out. That's everything for June. And they did go a little bit into July, but I'm going to be honest, July just, outside the first year anniversary, seems pretty bare bones. But we'll go ahead and hop right into this. I'm really hoping the first year anniversary has a lot of content. So obviously the biggest thing for the July update, or at least the first one for the beginning of the month, because we do actually have 2 updates for July, is the first year anniversary. Now, they did show off this, what's called the Albion Infinity Pool, as you guys can see on the screen. So that'll be the change to celebrate this, and they said this is going to be the biggest change to Albion, because it's first year anniversary, so they need to go big to celebrate. And in this pool, you'll be able to do a bunch of things. It looks like slide, down the slide, swim, sunbathe, relax, splash water, so on and so forth. So there will be a lot of cool stuff to do. Outside of that, for the first anniversary, there will apparently be a lot of events. And that's pretty much all they went into. We'll have some skins, we'll get into that a little bit later in this video. But yeah, I don't know what else is coming up in the first year anniversary. They didn't talk too much about it, they mainly just focused on the Albion Infinity Pool, which does look cool. And they also said there will be some unique stuff you can get for the first year anniversary. And some login events and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Kind of like the Season 2 events that we had, it sounds like. But that's pretty much all they talked about for that. The only other thing they did talk about for the first year anniversary was they called it the Descendant Fest. And they said that we will get a live stream during that will show video of Season 3, like actual gameplay. In the Season 3 section later in this video, we get like a few images and screen captures, but nothing actually moving. and no video. So apparently during this there will be a lot more in-depth like videos and whatnot about season 3. But that's still 3 weeks away, so. Another change is coming in July is there's going to be a lot of changes to weapon cores. So we'll have the last stage now be rotating instead of just a consistent stage. We'll also get a reduction in the number of stages, so instead of the 30 that's currently there, we'll instead have 10. I think this is because originally these weren't meant to be fully farming, they're meant to be kind of challenge stages. And now they're farming instead, so it makes sense for this change. We'll also have a reduction in the core costs to basically do anything, whether that's upgrading cores or changing them, so on and so forth. All that stuff will be reduced in cost, but this won't happen until July. Also, cores will now be able to be farmed in multiple locations for weapon cores, but VEP stage will still be the best. So on top of the weapon core farming changes, we're actually also getting a new weapon core. Now this won't be like a new weapon core type slot. It'll just be a new weapon core that will also go in the same slot as the red one currently, which is called the hit slot. So this one will cover multi-hit chance and multi-hit damage. And the reason why they went with creating an entirely new core instead of using the already red one that's there is this is so that when you're rolling for crit or crit damage, which are the current two on the red core, it wouldn't just make it a nightmare to keep trying to roll for those, or even more of a nightmare than it already is. So this is just to make it so that the chances of what you're trying to roll for are more likely for you to get. Also, they will not be changing current weapon core slots for weapons. If anyone's wondering if weapons will be rebalanced that way, they said they will not do that so that they don't ruin anyone's current builds. And some people may be really disappointed if their current builds get ruined by something like that. So for example, Ancient Knight will still have all the core slots it currently has instead of getting added like red slots or replacing some of its yellow slots with red slots. It will still only have the current ones it has. So no weapon changes in that direction. So some people know one of the changes that they were planning for July is a balance update. They went a little bit in depth into this, talking about how they want to kind of make a concrete core of what they believe balance should be, and that's their path to move forward. They said there's 3 main modes right now in the game, and that's mass wave clear, like 400%, which would be Inez and Freyna. There's small groups of enemies, but they're more elite in health, which would be something like VS would clear. And then one-on-one, giant claw side fights, which would be something like Haley would clear. They said if they feel like a character's not doing well in any of these, they need rebalancing. And they gave a list of 6 characters that they're going to buff, because they don't feel like they're doing their roles well enough right now, and that's Blair, Haley, Valby, Sharon, Glay, and Enzo. They also did talk about Glay a little bit, the fact that they're going to remove her self-slow. And they also did apologize and say they can't always get balanced right the first time. Sometimes some characters will be underpowered and others will be overpowered. And they do just ask for everyone's patience. And sometimes these takes a few tries to get it right. Which makes sense. It's really hard to perfectly balance a game like this. There's so many different characters, so many different mission types, and as we get more and more stuff, certain builds will eventually outshine others and some will become underpowered. I do understand that this is challenging for them. And the only other thing they talked about for balance for Descendants is they're going to increase movement speed cap. They're going to change Valby so that she can get a more variable speed with her abilities instead of a set movement speed. And then they're also going to adjust Bunny so that she can get faster speeds. And then on top of the balance for Descendants, they also said they're going to balance guns, but they didn't really go in depth about that. We'll just have to wait and see for that one. So with July being the 1-year anniversary, of course we'll get some cosmetics. They said there will be plenty of free stuff from the 1st-year anniversary, which will include, it sounds like, themes, stickers, some profile icons. They didn't really say anything much about like actual skins themselves that will be free, except for the Twisted Worship Inez skin. But we'll talk about that more towards the end of the video in the events section. There is another skin line. It's the 3rd time we're getting the swimsuit skin line, which I'm not complaining. I do like the swimsuit skins, like most people, but I was kind of hoping for something more like a gala skin line. I feel like that would have been more appropriate for a 1 year anniversary. I think it would have looked really good. Like, I can only imagine how good they could have made like a gala skin line. But maybe in the future we'll get that. Moving on to the section I think everyone's most interested in, which is Season 3. There's a lot of cool stuff announced today. Some things they hadn't previewed before, which they are now previewing. Unfortunately though, all we have is screenshots. There was no actual video for Season 3. I believe I said this earlier in the video, but during the Descendant Fest, which will be the 1 year anniversary, they will do another dev livestream which will show actual video of Season 3. But for now, we'll just have to make do with all these screenshots. I figured we'd start talking about Season 3 with talking about the bikes, because personally that's one of the things I'm most interested in. They actually talked about why they went with the decision for hover bikes over normal bikes. Apparently they were debating it a lot in studio. But then one of the artists came up with a concept art for the hover bike and they just basically went, yep, this is it. We're going with this. That's how they decided to do hover bikes. They talked a little bit about how the hover bikes will be absolutely necessary to traverse Axion, because that's how big it is. Which, before this dev stream, I didn't think Axion was going to be ginormous. I thought it was just going to be, oh yeah, one of the player fields, times 3 or 4, maybe times like 6. I thought it would basically just be a region that we currently have, but just instead of separate instances, like all smashed together. But the more I'm hearing about this, like all the things they're adding to Axion, the more I'm thinking it's a lot larger than I thought. Now, we don't have any exact map size or any preview of it, but yeah, everything they've talked about in this section just makes me think Axion's massive, and I'm definitely gonna need one of these hover bikes to go around it and just figure out where to go, because I don't want to walk on foot around Axion. That sounds pretty bad. But you guys can see on screen they also previewed another bike. This is the acceleration type hover bike. I think it looks really cool. I like this sleek design. I'm not a huge fan of the fins in the front, but I do like the coloring and the rest of the design of it. And also, don't forget, they've said this before, but if you log in during Season 3, like towards the beginning, I don't know how long this is actually going to go on for, but you will get a free hover bike. It will just be the basic type, but you will get one for free. Wall Crasher, the 8-man raid everyone's waiting for. They talked a little bit about this. They said his main abilities will be giant AoE attacks, so you'll have to focus on dodging, and then attack during and damage phase while he's charging up his next ability. I hope it's a little bit more complex than that, but they said most Colossi that have done well have very straightforward, easy to understand mechanics. I think they should introduce more complex mechanics again. I did enjoy some of the original mechanics of some boss fights like Molten Fortress, Hanged Man. Part of the fun of those fights was figuring them out. So I do hope the boss has slightly more advanced mechanics than just dodge, attack, dodge, attack, dodge, attack. That'd be very disappointing. And I do think we will need more complex bosses to quantify it as a good raid. Not just, dodge, attack, dodge, attack, dodge, attack. I do like the boss's design. It kind of reminds me of Gundam Unicorn with the lighting on it. And as you can see, it's very massive. This is also just a temporary arena. This is not its actual full arena. This is just like testing ground. And you'll be able to fight this boss every 2 hours from what they were saying. And they will make rewards kind of appropriate to that, limited time window. They also mentioned that with this boss, there will be something called a server mission, or server quest, however you want to call it, that the whole server will contribute towards this mission, and if we complete the mission, we get bonus rewards such as reduced research time, bonus XP, and some other buffs. Which sounds really good, and it is a nice idea to have a mission that the whole server works towards. I've noticed through playing several other games that often if you have something like this, a lot of people really like to contribute. They really like that overarching goal, and giving them a reward is also good. So hopefully that works well. I'm excited to see that. There is some other stuff about Wall Crasher, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Because first I gotta talk about Axion, because it does relate to Axion. So let's just dive right into that one. A decent amount of the talk in the Season 3 section of the dev stream was actually about Axion. It seems like their goal of Axion is to make it a one-all stop. You know, the one-all be-all place for everything in the game. Well, at least grinding everything. If you need to grind something, you apparently can do it here. Even blueprints for weapons or descendants, apparently you'll be able to have a chance to get them here. They didn't talk about how you get them, other than that sometimes you can just have like a random drop that gives you that kind of stuff. It seems like they just want everything to be here. Which seems like it will be, as I said earlier, a lot more massive than I thought it would be. I am curious, I'm more curious than ever now to see Axion. I can't wait for a Descendant Fest to be able to see like a preview of this. Because I can't grasp how massive this is going to be with how much stuff they want to cram into this. One of the cool pieces of information that we got revealed about Axion was something that a lot of people wondered if we'd have, and that's a weather system and time change, and we will be getting both. So we will have a weather system, as you can see in this image. There's rain, clear skies. They also talked about wanting to have more cloud structures so that it would change, the weather would look different, and we will be getting different times of day. They said the time would change as you're there. I'm not fully certain because they also said it was like Albion. And if you just hang out in Albion, I'm pretty certain it only changes time when you leave Albion and come back, and it's just a random thing. I've never actually seen Albion have its time change outside of me leaving and coming back. I'm not sure if that was something they misspoke about, but yeah, we will be having both a weather system and a time change, which sounds like it will change some of how Axion is too. It'll be really cool. So one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about Axion before I talked about more about Wall Crasher was because when Wall Crasher gets summoned, there's an event that happens in Axion that changes the map, kind of like how there's a weather system. I'll throw up the image that they showed, but yeah, the map transforms. It's supposed to be kind of like the Colossi Arena fusing with Axion almost. You can see some of the similar things from previous Colossi Arenas. And this apparently changes Axion a lot, including they're mentioning other Colossi getting summoned. Now, I don't know if this is just like background images or if we'll actually be able to fight other Colossi in the field, but they said it should summon other smaller Colossi. They didn't really go into specifics about it, but it is really cool how it changes Axion, and then we'll eventually get an arena somewhere in the field to fight Wall Crasher. And this causes a lot of cool things, including the fact that Wall Crasher, his arena won't just like summon you to a new instance, it'll actually be in the field. And this means that another player can just come join the Wall Crasher fight mid-fight. So you could be fighting with 3 other players during the Wall Crasher fight, and the other people on the map could come and join you and help fight Wall Crasher. They didn't go into if this changes anything like his scaling or anything else, so I'll have to see for more information on that. But yeah, Wall Crasher seems like it'll be a really cool thing for this fight. Also, they said that the map will slowly change as it's closer to Wall Crasher getting summoned. So it won't just be like, you know, an immediate, we get the Wall Crasher arena. It'll be like an event that just slowly changes it. So on top of Wall Crasher changing the arena, apparently we'll also have something called a rotating battlefield, which randomly one mission on Axion will just get replaced with a battlefield. They didn't go too much in depth into this, but it seems like it's a unique thing that you'll just be able to go fight in a battlefield. It's pretty cool. It'll make Axion definitely interesting to explore. I don't know if it'll show up on your map or if you just have to go hunt it down. Yeah, it'll just randomly change and you'll find a battlefield to go fight in. Something else to spice up the game and add a little variance is a new enemy called the Spiker, which will appear in Axion. They kind of made it sound like a mini boss almost that just spawns randomly in a mission. Like you don't know where it will spawn in the mission because you can just choose any point, the beginning, the middle, the end. There'll be 3 types of spikers as well. You can also see the image on screen, that's just one version of it. They didn't say what the differences will be. But yeah, apparently we'll have 3 types of this and they can just randomly appear. It says to add a little suspense to every mission, that it can just randomly spawn at cool times, free to fight. They like I said, they made it sound like a mini boss. It may just be an elite enemy, but we'll see what other information they announce for this. It's a cool concept. I like the idea of like a little bit of variance and randomness in the missions, especially if it's just like a random mini boss. It can make some cool moments happen. They did preview a couple enemies that'll be brand new and talked a little bit in depth about them. One is a spawning enemy that will spawn mobs of waves. And they said you'll have to kind of tackle this in an interesting way, because the mobs that spawns will adapt to whatever element you're using. So if you're just Inez trying to mass AoE clear, and you kill one of the spawned units, the spawner then will update and go, oh, it's using electric type. Let me just spawn someone who has electric resistance. And pretty much the same with any other element. If you're Blair and you're using fire, it goes, oh, I should spawn fire resistance. It only goes off the type of damage that it was last damaged by. So if you bring like a toxic weapon as an Ez, you start firing the toxic weapon, it'll instead have toxic resistance. They said you'll have kind of the best way to tackle this is to bring 2 elements or have 2 people. The other type of enemy that they announced is a dropship type enemy. So I'm sure you guys have seen those dropships that you have to destroy in Sigma Sector. Well, those will now spawn in Axion, and instead will just drop troops. They also said you could just take out the dropship instead of fighting all the legions that come out to try and kill you. But you could also just fight the legion itself. It also doesn't matter which one you do, because you get resource drops if you destroy the dropship, or if you kill the troops, you get the same amount of resources, which is pretty cool. But it seems like the new enemies will be more of swarm type of enemies. They also went over trigger modules, something they had mentioned before in a previous stream. They went a little bit more in depth on this one. Basically, trigger modules will be triggered by certain abilities, which will be getting new tags on abilities. So, for example, it'll be something like collision or heal on these new abilities. And if an ability has one of the correct tags for the trigger, it will then trigger an additional effect. The effects they went into were something like if you win on a collision, you cause a massive AoE that stuns. The healing one was really cool sounding, as if you heal an ally or get them support, they turn into a turret for you or something like that. I'm assuming they just mean they get like a little drone on them that acts as a turret and shoots. But these trigger modules, they hope, will kind of change builds a lot and change the meta. They sound pretty cool, and they probably will change builds a lot if they all have these special effects. My only issue with these is they might make certain builds to one ability reliant. We'll see. Because it could be something like how a skill tag could be something like tech. So you could just have it work with all tech abilities. Or it could be none of your abilities have matching skills tags. So we'll see in the future. I'm hesitant on this one. The secondary effects sound really cool. But we have too little information. The roadmap for Season 3 was also shown during the dev stream. There's a lot of cool stuff announced in this. My only real issue with this is I think the September update should be in the August 7th update as well. Like, they should just fuse August and September together for the Season 3 launch, and then change either September to have every month bumped up one. So, September would now be the October one, and, so on and so forth. Or just make September a very minor update month, since, we'd have a lot of content from the start of Season 3. But it's also possible that the update of Season 3 already has so much content that it'd be good to delay the lounges. We'll see with that. I personally, just like I said, think August and September should be fused together. The other stuff, though, looks pretty cool. We have a new dungeon every month from October to December, so 3 new dungeons. There's also module trading, which sounds pretty cool. That'll be the first step towards player trading that people have requested since launch. If it's module to module, I don't particularly like that because I don't see a current use in it. You can get modules relatively easily. I mean, some are difficult and annoying to get, but it's overall not that hard. Because you can just grind out Colossi if it's a transient mod you're looking for and just reroll transients until you get it. If it's like a super hard one to grind out. I would much rather this either be trade modules for caliber or resources like nano compound. But it's a step towards trading. We're also getting a new Descendant. Ultimate Eugen will come in December. I'm also curious about this new collaboration. They talked about this and said it's still in the works. Like it's in its final stages of confirming everything. And they have a few collaborations lined up. They just can't announce it yet. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like a Final Fantasy collaboration or some collaboration with another gacha game. Let me know below the video what you guys think the new collaboration could be coming in November. Or what you'd want to see. But everything else in this is pretty good looking. We're going to get Molten Fortress and Hanged Man variants, which I like the original fights a lot, so getting variant versions where they can improve the mechanics could be a lot of fun. We knew swords weren't going to come out right away, so it makes sense they're coming out in October. It is a little disappointing to have to wait that long. I really wanted a giant sword fight, but it's okay. I expected this. Yeah, this will be our roadmap up until December. We don't know what's happening after December, so we don't know if that's the end of Season 3, or if that's just what they have shown so far. For the Q&A section of this dev stream, they handled it a little bit differently. They had questions submitted beforehand. They said they had over 3,000 questions. So they tried to pick questions that covered the most asked things, but in a more general format, so we'll go over some of that information that was said then. Not gonna go over all of it because some of it's like bug fixes and people asking some questions like that. First question asked in the Q&A was about arcade trees. Mainly asking, is there any plan to expand them out? And the answer was they were always planned to be expanded out, and they were designed that way. But the issue is they don't want to do that until end game is actually fleshed out. And, you know, there actually is an end game. They said after that's done, they plan to expand it out in the future. They also said mutant cells will get new types, and that'll be slowly done over time. And also mutant cells will be farmable in Axion once that comes out. Another question in the Q&A was on repetitive content / in-game content. And they did go over this. It was mainly about replayability in the game and how in-game will feel. To do this, they are introducing rotating content in Axion. We already talked about that. It'd be such as the battlefield rotating and some other stuff. They also, as I said earlier with Axion, plan to make that a one-all be-all place for farming. They also mentioned something about a module black market. I don't know if they misspoke with that. There will also be apparently new dungeons Season 3, as we went over with the roadmap for Season 3. They said the interesting thing about this was instead of, you know, monsters just having more health like VIB, these will be dungeons targeted towards endgame people. But the monsters will just have new mechanics and patterns. So I'm interested in that. And then the final thing was people were asking about previous Colossi fights, since Wall Crasher will just be kind of replacing all those in difficulty. And they said they're going to rework hard mode intercepts, so hard mode Colossi fights, to be different. They went over this a little bit, but it sounds like you'll be able to adjust the difficulty yourself by adding several conditions. But they didn't show anything for that, so I think it's a very much so still in the works type deal. They said the other thing they plan to do is eliminate the need to open up patterns from hard mode intercepts, but that would be the first step before they would add this new system. I'm sure as everyone expected, there is login events that will be happening June and July, cover the anniversary, and just fill in gaps in between now and Season 3. That wasn't the only thing announced. We'll also be getting coins. I'm not sure if these are currency or items. I think they're items. Anyways, you'll be able to use these to make up for lost days in login events. So for example, let's just say you have a 3-week login event. There's a week left and you have 9 days left to complete the entire thing. You could use these coins to make up for the 2 days that you would have missed to be able to complete the entire thing. They said you'd be able to get these coins in 2 different ways. Some events will give it, and then you can also buy it with caliber. They said, I believe, 80 caliber for this. Beyond that, we'll have 4 events going on they've announced so far. We might actually have more than that. 2 will be happening in June, and 1 will be actually going from June all the way up until, well, not even up until through season 3. And then 2 will be going from the anniversary to season 3. So look forward to that. I'll go ahead and throw up all the stuff on the screen here. And one of these skins you can get from this login is a Nez skin. And that's it for the dev livestream recap. There's lots of cool information, mainly about season 3 announced here. A couple of unexpected things for June, which mainly it's the challenge stage coming out for Abyssal. I was not expecting that. But more season 3 information will be announced during the First Descendant Fest, which will be happening during the anniversary event. So about early July, they said. They didn't give an exact date, but it sounds like the first anniversary starts July 2nd or 3rd, depending on where you are in the world. So we'll do another recap for that. But I appreciate y'all watching. If you want to chat for Descendant, I do live stream on Twitch every day. If you did like the video, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. And I'll catch y'all later, and thanks for watching this video.